What's up, everybody? It's Brandon. I'm back with another knee-jerk reaction. I had to jump on this one right away because I am a big Matrix fan, the original. Reloaded, not a bad sequel. It's all right. Not great, but it's pretty good. The third one, Revelations, not quite. Not a big fan of that movie. I don't think it's the shit show that a lot of people let on it to be, but at the same damn time, though, even though it's objectively not that bad of a movie, it didn't really work for me subjectively either. So I don't skip it, but I kind of get left off with a whimper. In this one, I was interested in how they could, it's in the title, resurrected. How could they pull this off? Because the Wachowski sisters have not been good for quite some time, for the most part. I'll at least say that. We can at least admit that, right? Objectively, again, objectively. But this one, like maybe going back to their roots, maybe that could resurrect it, their career even. Or maybe it's just too far gone and this is the last nail in the coffin where it's like they can't even do the one thing they did great right anymore. Well, I'm here to say this movie is definitely going to be split, I think. This movie, I think, personally, really, I won't say how well it hit for me, but it did hit. I'll get to that portion later in the review and more as I talk. I do think it is a bit slow. I think they could have shaved like 20 minutes off of this, and I think the movie would have been all the better for it. Because there is times where it's a little long-winded in its approach, and it's kind of like, okay, even for me, we can kind of move past this. Whereas there's other moments too, though, where I'm like, this is necessary. This fucking needs to be drug out like this, and I'm eating it up. But other people will be like, this is long-winded the whole time, as I am saying it's long-winded in other scenes. They'll feel like that the entire fucking time. So that's what I'm nervous about for people that are going to dislike it. I think I saw it had a 6.2 on IMDb. That's usually a decent gauge on what the audience is thinking, not the critics. And the critics have it at like a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I was hyped to see because I was worried. Like I said, this could be a complete misfire for everybody, despite the trailers looking pretty freaking cool. But yet and still, this movie, I'll say this much. While I loved it, I'll just go ahead and say it. I loved it. I didn't like, oh my God, I love it, but I did love it. I didn't just like it, I loved it. I'll probably put this over Reloaded as my next favorite Matrix sequel, at least for now. We'll see what happens in subsequent viewings. But there is something to say about it, whereas the original Matrix has its big fans and has the people that dive into every little detail and love it. It's also effortlessly likable. Like, you don't really have to, like, you could go there and kind of catch just enough to kind of know what's going on, and maybe, again, in subsequent viewings, you pick up on everything else, but just by what that movie was when it came out, how mind-bending it was, how crazy it was with the martial arts being put into like the American audiences' homes and like really putting it on Front Street with those kind of special effects, all that shit. There was something enough there to where like you could be a big fan of it with also not really knowing all the ins and outs of it. You could turn your brain off and watch it and it'd be great, or you could dive even deeper and it can be downright amazing, which I kind of, I love my turn your brain off movies, but the first one is a movie I dive deep in. I eat up every last bit of it. This one, I don't think has that same effect to where you can't just effortlessly enjoy the movie. Like, it's not effortlessly likable. You have to be that guy that absolutely loves diving into the mythos and everything that is the Matrix. The guy that's not, that's ready to not just look at his phone if you're in the movie theater. I hope you're not fucking doing that, asshole. But even if you're like at home watching this on HBO Max or something, you can't look at your phone, but you also can't zone out. You have to be in it. You have to be present, even if it's slow, because every little thing is important. And if you find yourself sitting there like, damn, dude, like, I don't care about this. Oh, my God, where is the action? There is a lot of action, but there's also a lot of in-between stuff. If you're not ready to do that, you will not be on board. If you're not into that part of what is the Matrix and you're not wholeheartedly into that, you will probably not like this movie. But if you are into all the ins and outs of what makes the Matrix, and the buildup of all that with the fighting, then I think you're going to have a damn good time here. I think this movie is really well put together. I think Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, the payoff with everything that happens with them by the end of it, feels very nice. I won't reveal everything exactly because it's not a spoiler review on what happens with that. I think, I forget his name, guy that just played in Candyman. It's a tricky name. I don't know that off the top of my head. That plays Morpheus. I think he does, an admirable enough job. Although there was moments I could have used a little more of him, I think, as the movie wore on. This new character, Bugs, she kind of stole the show for me. I loved her character, and I definitely want more out of this character. So I hope, if we get a sequel that she comes back. And here's the thing, that's not a spoiler. She lives or dies. We have seen this before in this kind of franchise. You don't really know what's going to fucking happen. They kind of have their own rules within this Matrix system to where, if they wanted to, they could just explain something away and do whatever they want. This franchise has that type of vibe if they do, in fact, want to go there. So Bugs, amazing character. The analyst, Neil Patrick Harris, I thought he was an amazing add-on. The action scenes, they weren't as breathtaking as the first one, but they were solid enough, and you do get, those bits of martial arts amongst the shootouts. Although there was a moment, I will say, I won't say at what point of the film, where I wished I could have had a little more martial arts, being the big martial arts fan that I am. But overall, guys, like I said, if you are into everything in deep, that you can follow along and you can fucking just dive into this world, you have to be able to do that. But if you can, I think the payoff is good. But if you're somebody who's just there for the fighting and that was it, and you're like, oh yeah, I love that shit, and then oh yeah, with this and the special effects, if you're just there for that, I don't know if you were going to like this movie. If you're somebody that's like, oh, my dad watched those when I was younger, and let me kind of see what this world like, and this will be like my Matrix, I don't think you're going to like this movie. But I think there is a strong chance, if all of what the Matrix is your fucking bag, then you will more than likely, I'll say, really enjoy this movie. But I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the negative views that I'm kind of seeing here and there. It's not, they don't get it. It's just not their bag, or they haven't dove into the first movie as much as I think they did, or the sequels. I think that's the biggest takeaway I felt watching this movie. And I've seen some people saying, like, the storyline, like, you can't even keep up with it. I don't even know what's going on. What is even happening in this movie? When you say that, it's basically like, tell me you don't really know what is happening in the Matrix without telling me you don't really know what's happening in the Matrix. Because if you know what the Matrix is and you can follow along, don't fucking blink. Like, you're fucking following each little element. They're not always laying it flat out there. They might be using, like, not big words necessarily, like, I don't understand this, I'm not smart. Like, that type of shit isn't necessarily going on. But, things you're learning as you were getting brought more into this world, even in this movie, you can put two and two together. You know what is happening. It's not that hard to follow. But it will be if you don't pay attention, okay? I don't understand the whole, like, what does this mean? What does that mean? I didn't understand any of this. Then you don't know what the Matrix is. You weren't that big of a fan of the original. Like, maybe you're like, oh, I watched that back in the day, or I've seen it a handful of times, and I haven't seen it in a while, I never was a big fan. I can kind of get that. But even in this movie, I feel like if you follow along, you'll be just fine. But are you willing to follow along? And that is the biggest thing, because I think it will lose a lot of people. But man, I actually really enjoyed this movie. There was moments, like I said, a little too long-winded. There was highs, there was lows, there was highs, there was lows. I felt my score going, but never going into the bad territory. But in the end, I went from like a mid-high 8, but then more things happened. Not that the ending wasn't satisfactory. There was definitely some punch there where I was like, okay, I do like that. But there was things as like I was calculating it all together, and I'm like, this is working for me. I'm a big original Matrix fan. Am I going too high with my score for those reasons? To where I kind of tempered expectations, and a few things I wish they would have done in certain spots kind of brought it down a little bit, but overall, I did love this movie, man. I got this movie at an 8.2 out of 10. And I'm really interested to think of what the rest of the Banner team's going to think of it when they see it and what all of y'all are going to think of it. And if y'all agree with me where you're like, okay, yeah, I didn't really get into this, or okay, I love the first one, but I can kind of agree with what you're saying. I'm not wrapped up in this Matrix world quite like you are, so maybe that's why it didn't work for me. I think the new guy playing Agent Smith, at first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I think he ended up being pretty solid. I mean, he's not Hugo Weaving, but he had a little bit of charisma to him. He was all right. One character I did not enjoy, Niobe's character. Something about her. I mean, I'm not going to go too deep into her character. I was kind of disappointed in her character. It was more of just the performance. I'm not going to say like she did or didn't do anything wrong, but something about her performance mainly is what it is, that it was just, I don't know. Like, I don't even necessarily think she did like this god awful job. It just didn't really work for me, and I was like, really, I don't want to dive too deep into it, guys. But yeah, I loved it. I mean, like I said, if I didn't say already, I'm giving this one an 8.2 out of 10. Didn't quite crack my top 10 of the year, but it was great to me, and it sets up what I'm hoping can be more movies, because I am loving this as a stepping stone into what more can come, because I think they have the possibility. It's not where I watch this and I'm like what else can you really do with it? I mean, do they really even need to bring it back? I watched this and was like, I love it, but I think I can love it even more down the road. It's good shit, people. On my end, we'll see what more people think about it. I actually loved it. See if that becomes even more of a controversial opinion as more and more people roll in and see this movie. But yeah, The Matrix, man. Resurrections. Resurrected it for me. I'm in it once again. What did y'all think? Let me know. Love you guys.